Our first guest, without any further ado, is the peerless, the sage, Syed Professor Mohammed Marandi, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, and very generous he is with his time for the mother of all talk shows. Professor, first of all, I know you are a pious man, so I apologize that you had to listen to some of the, well, colourful language and imagery that I deployed out of sheer anger and rage. I hope I have your forgiveness. But you were previously a professor of American studies. So help me, what just happened there?
Well, George, thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a great pleasure being on your show, and listening to you is always, for me, it makes me feel that my speaking skills are utterly inadequate. I think that Trump has dug himself into a hole over Venezuela. I think he's making a catastrophic mistake. Perhaps the Epstein files has something to do with it. Perhaps he wants to distract attention away from what's going on. And the economic situation is not good. Nothing is going well for the United States. So a quick win in Venezuela may have been a cure. But I think that this is going to fail. Kidnapping the lawful and legitimate president of the country is not going to change anything. There's no vacuum of power in the country. The vice president is the acting president. She has said that President Maduro continues to be the president, the legitimate president of the country, and the armed forces, the administration, parliament, everything is in place. That what has changed is that Trump, through his arrogance and through his thuggish behavior during his talk at the press conference, I think has united the country of Venezuela in a way that no one else could have done, by telling the Venezuelans that the oil is ours. Who is going to support this? The opposition can no longer support such a shameless policy. This is 19th century behavior. This is 18th century behavior. This is early 20th century behavior. The political correctness has gone aside, and now it's just brutal imperialism. At least under Obama and Bush and Clinton and Reagan, there was some political correctness. They pretended it was about human rights. They pretended it was about sovereignty and about enabling countries and about helping. Now it's just about stealing what they can. And the Europeans, of course, are wagging their tails for Big Daddy and supporting this act of aggression, just like they supported their, I don't want to go to your description of Trump and Netanyahu, but just as they supported Netanyahu when he invaded Iran. It's clear that the entire Western political establishment has cast aside the mantle of human rights and democracy and all that nonsense. It is now about taking what they can to plunder what can be plundered and to subjugate everyone in the process. And this, I think, has united Venezuela in ways that did not happen before. Friends in Venezuela, friends of yours and mine who I've spoken to, and I'm sure you've spoken to as well, they're all saying that people are outraged, and that now President Maduro is more popular than he has ever been before. And some are saying that if this continues, he'll become more popular than former President Hugo Chavez. So, and one of the interesting things, and correct me if you think I'm mistaken because your knowledge is greater than mine, the reason why Trump did not choose the Nobel War Prize winner as the president of Venezuela is not, I don't think it's simply because he knows that she has no place. She supported this war, and so she supported the murder that we saw. But I think it's because he knows that if he chooses her as president, he has to install her. and she has to go to Venezuela. And then he has to put boots on the ground. And yes, the United States can control the airspace of Venezuela. They can bomb the country and murder people. They've murdered soldiers. They murdered President Maduro's guards. Most of them apparently were murdered. They can murder ordinary citizens, but from the air, yes, they have superior technology. But when they come to the ground, when they put their boots on the ground, then what are they going to do? You've seen the country. It is mountainous, it is forest, it has jungles. It is the worst place for a superpower to want to have a war, an insurgency against it. So I think that the very fact that he did not install his president is because he knows that it would cause the United States to get into another Vietnam.
Now, the acting president, Rodriguez, was very clear today. There is only one president in Venezuela, and that is Nicolas Maduro. He is temporarily or permanently in the hands of the American empire, but that does not delegitimize him, it delegitimizes them. The mass movement that we both know so well of Chavistas, the supporters of the Bolivarian Revolution, launched and phenomenally successful under the late and great President Hugo Chavez, is still in power. And so nothing has changed. And Rubio appeared to accept that. And for the reasons that you have just admirably explained. If they pick someone else, they're going to have to install them. And that is, excuse me, that isn't going to be an easy thing to do. So the revolution continues. In what way does that improve America's position, not just in Venezuela, but in the world? It shows the United States in a light unimaginably harsh, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that what the United States does in the coming days and weeks and months is only going to make things worse. And as I said, Trump has dug himself into a hole. And it's not only the Venezuelan people, George. It is everyone across the world who was watching the press conference. He spoke like a thug. He wasn't even speaking like a godfather. It was just a thug, a neighborhood thug who was speaking. The oil is ours. We'll decide. We'll sell the oil. We'll choose who's in charge. Well, people in Brazil are watching. People in Argentina are watching. People in South Africa and Niger and Nigeria and Bangladesh. Everyone across the world who's politically awake and who is following the news knows what this is all about. This is even the pretense of, as I said earlier, human rights and human values and freedom and democracy, which was always a lie and always an excuse to plunder and rape and steal. That has been cast aside, which is a good thing. I personally believe that Trump, who always says the quiet part out loud, is helping to destroy the empire more rapidly than it would under ordinary circumstances. And the people around him are, like himself, extraordinarily stupid. We saw Pompeo's tweet about Iran, where he basically said that, yes, the Mossad agents are with the rioters in Iran. Now the Iranian government, the administration, President Pezeshkian, intelligence officers don't even have to go on television to convince people that the Mossad is behind these riots. Pompeo the fool is saying it himself. All of this is very good news. The fact that they are so crude, the fact that they're murdering people is tragic. And I believe that probably having dug himself into a hole in Venezuela so deep so far, that he is stupid enough and foolish enough to continue digging. And that probably means more death and destruction, but it means a greater defeat ultimately for Trump himself and the regime in Washington. And the same applies for the Islamic Republic of Iran. If the United States and the Israeli regime come after Iran again, they're going to be defeated. Iran will emerge victorious as they did last time round. It'll only be worse for them because Iran is now preparing for war. Iran is not going to be caught off guard. And the United States has overextended itself already. It's part of its fleet is in the Caribbean. It's escalating against China. We see the Chinese maneuvers in Taiwan. The war in Ukraine is reaching a critical juncture. This is not good for the United States, but I think that the people around Trump and Trump himself are too foolish and fanatical to recognize that.
I promise we'll come back to Iran, but on China, there was an envoy of Xi Jinping meeting Nicolas Maduro just a couple of hours before the United States swooped in and kidnapped him. This is as clear. I mean, I don't know if it was a coincidence. Sometimes coincidences happen in terms of the timing of this. But this was as clear a threat and a message to China as it was to Venezuela, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that is, again, it shows how foolish the Trump regime is, because how many enemies does the United States want to fight with simultaneously? They are intensifying with Russia. We know that the CIA was involved in this strike on President Putin's the compound in which he resides in. We know that the United States is intensifying its trade. It has intensified its trade war with China, and this attack on Venezuela is an attack on China because China buys Venezuelan oil, and China has investment in Venezuela, and Venezuela has very good relations with China and Russia and Iran. So there's no doubt that this is a threat to China. China gets its oil from Iran, it gets its oil from Venezuela, it gets its oil from Russia, and all three of these countries are countries that the United States is targeting. So I think this is only going to push China towards taking more harsh policies with regards to Washington. And this is something that Iranians welcome because the greater the antagonism between China and the United States, the more cooperation we'll be seeing between Iran and China. That's exactly what happened in Ukraine. When the proxy war in Ukraine started, Russia, which was cautious about Iran because it didn't want to be sanctioned, it didn't want to be antagonized and punished by the United States and its allies, it was now sanctioned. So it tilted towards Iran. And the relationship between Iran and Russia has been booming. The North-South transport corridor is rapidly making progress, and other aspects of the relationship are growing very rapidly. The same is true with China. And with the behavior of Trump in Venezuela and in our part of the world, what he's doing is that he's turning the whole globe against the United States. He's been doing it Biden was doing it through the genocide in Gaza. He continued this process through supporting and continuing the genocide in Gaza. But by expanding these trade wars and these military actions throughout the world, and of course there's Greenland, I think he's only making things more difficult for the United States. Now, why does he do this? I think it's exceptionalism. I think it's the arrogance of power. It's just like Zionism. The supremacists always think that they have special powers and a special gift, and ultimately they will overcome. They always underestimate their adversaries. The United States thinks the regime in Washington thinks it is exceptional. Even as the Titanic is sinking, they continue to be playing music and hoping that they'll reach their final destination, which will probably
Yeah.
be at
It
the
was an
bottom of the
exceptional
ocean.
ship, the Titanic. That is for sure. Professor, I saw that tweet from Pompeo, and at first I thought it was some kind of spoof, but he asked God to bless the protesters on the streets of Iran and the Mossad agents who walked alongside them. Uh, I don't know if it's, Ozempic has ensured he's not the man he used to be. I don't know if it affects the mental health as well as the physical stature. But tell us what's happening on the streets of Iran. I mean, only a fool would doubt that this is part of the ongoing aggression mounted by Israel and the United States. But how widespread is it, and how securely on top of it are the Iranian government?
It's not widespread. What happened, George, is that as you know, you've been to Iran, you know Iran. The United States has imposed sanctions on Iran for 4.5 decades. They try to strangle the economy to bring people to their knees so that they overthrow the government out of desperation. That's what they are doing to Venezuela. That's what they do to Cuba. That's what they did to Syria. That's a part of their policy. And only fools who think that they're anti-imperialists would support any of these, whether it's Syria or Venezuela or Cuba or Iran or anyone else. But in any case, because of the sanctions, obviously the government has more difficulty than ordinary governments when it comes to finances. Recently, we had a significant fall in the real, uh, which has happened often during the last 2 decades. And some business people went to the streets to protest because they were concerned when the real falls, the goods that they've sold don't make them enough money to go and purchase more goods. It becomes more difficult for them to continue their businesses, and their businesses could collapse. So they went to the streets to protest and to tell the government that we need the currency to be stabilized. The first day, George, nothing happened. There was no violence. And that was the day when the protests were the largest. There were maybe, I don't know the numbers, maybe 1,000 or two, I don't know. But those were the largest protests. No police intervention, no violence. Not like in the UK, if someone holds a piece of paper saying I oppose genocide, if you're 80 years old, you get dragged off to jail. That doesn't happen. Or if you're in Germany, and you have a kafia, and then a young woman can get battered and beaten by the police. No, that didn't happen. But on day two, we saw small groups of violent people, very well organized, in different towns and cities, starting attacking the police, public assets, public buildings, banks, and police stations as well. A couple of police officers have been killed. I've posted some videos of where they use a torch to set fire to a police officer on a motorcycle. I mean, if that happened in the West, there would be uproar. But when it comes to Iran, the entire Persian language media in the West, BBC Persian, Iran International, all of these media outlets that get their funding from Western intelligence agencies, all these tens of TV channels and Telegram channels and these cyber armies that they have in Albania and elsewhere, all of them have been working morning to night and from morning to night and from night to morning to justify the beating of police officers, the killing of police officers, using AI to exaggerate their numbers. They manipulate, just like what we're seeing in Venezuela. I'm sure you saw some of the images of Argentina, huge crowds, and then they said this is the people of Venezuela celebrating the fall of Maduro. That's the same thing that they've been. I mean, what they're doing towards in Venezuela reminds me of what they do in Iran. It's very similar the fate of these two countries, and I'm sure that both countries will come out on top and defeat the empire. But things are calm across the country. Nothing much is happening. People are politically aware. They've seen the what the United States and the Europeans have done in Gaza. They've seen the 12-day war where the Iranians were negotiating and the West was conspiring against it. And they've seen how the United States, over the last couple of days, what it has done to Venezuela. People in Iran see what Trump says, the oil is ours. Well, we have a lot of oil, George. We have a lot of gas too. And Iranians know that the ultimate intention of the United States, whether in Venezuela or in Iran, is for the United States to plunder, and the oligarchs in the United States. Ordinary Americans will not get anything out of this. It will be for the oligarchs to plunder.